You talked about how your relationship with your daughter Pippa has changed your outlook on the world in general, on people in general. I want to get your take on how the Global Down Syndrome Foundation, um, the importance of the work that they are doing.
Okay, so the Global Down Syndrome Foundation is incredible. And I am so grateful that they are here. One of the things that like blew my mind when I was a new mom of someone with Down syndrome was the lack of information that was available, the lack of kind of medical information that was available. Like my pediatrician didn't know a lot about it, and so like the information that I was relying on was really outdated, and the things I'd heard about Down syndrome were outdated. And the Global Down Syndrome Foundation has a huge focus on like staying current with research. A lot of the kind of medical establishment doesn't put the funding towards our community in the way that Global does. And so Michelle and everybody there was able to really give me information about like what Down syndrome actually is, and how like Down syndrome is not the problem. There are some like comorbidities that go along with it. And they have lots of information about that, like what is hypotonia and what goes on with some of the speech issues. And so they were able to educate me about that and talk about some of the like health things that we're going to need to look at and where funding needs to be. But they really help to dispel fear about Down syndrome and just get into the business of doing research on like, okay, this is a difference. What are some of the things we need to be aware of, and how do we like maximize capacity and life and fulfillment and joy for everyone in this community? And so they're just doing such a great job of really mobilizing funds and putting them in the right place to both do medical research and research about like how to make everyone's life just happier and more full living with Down syndrome.
You know, one of the bright lights that we lost recently was Deandra Dixon, and I wanted to, she and Jamie both were big advocates, right? Obviously, they're advocates. Can you talk about the impact that they've had on even the awareness that the general public might have about Down syndrome?
Yeah, I mean, we have had the amazing privilege of having Deandra Dixon in our lives for now over a decade. So she came to the first fashion show. She was the first Quincy Jones Exceptional Advocacy Award winner. Quincy made the award in her honor. So she was the inspiration for so many things. So, what we've lost, of course, is her advocacy. First of all, she's a female, she's African American, and she has Down syndrome. All those things are actually important to Global, right? Mm-hmm. And she was really loving, but she was also very matter of fact in her advocacy. She knew she was born into a very loving family, maybe a privileged family, but she wanted to help others. She's like, I understand other people with Down syndrome are struggling. How can I help them? And that was because her family was so wonderful in how they brought her up, just treating her equal and no different than any of the other kids, including Jamie and Deirdre. Like they're all treated equal. And you can see how that empowered her and gave her confidence to stand up and entertain. She's a great entertainer, and taking that entertainment skill and moving it into advocacy. But I think Caterina, you've met her too. I mean, Caterina, what was your impression of her, and of course the brother-sister relationship as well?
I mean, I only got to meet Deandra once, which was at the Peanut Butter Falcon premiere, and she was amazing. We kind of spent the night hanging out, and she was just a really chill hang. She was really fun. So I didn't know her that well, but I wish I had more of an opportunity to get to know her. And it is a huge loss for our whole community. She had a huge impact for everyone, and I'm sure for her family. Yeah.
And the outpouring of love. I don't know if you've looked at the social media. I would wager there's like maybe 300 people with Down syndrome, who are online, talking about this, posting things, and then their family members, and then people who are touched by Deandra, so that the numbers get bigger and bigger. I can't imagine what Mr. Dixon and Miss Annette are going through, losing their youngest child, and no parent should have to go through that. And I think we're very much committed to doubling down on research in medical care and making sure we elongate life and we improve health outcomes.
Well, Caterina, you've been taking to multiple platforms, obviously talking about this. You and Pippa shared the cover of People magazine, which is a beautiful thing. It must have been such a fun shoot. But what do when you share your story of what living with her is like and what loving with her is like, what do you hope that people learn? What do you want them to get from it?
I think that it's not just one thing. I think that for me, and I guess what I'm trying to transmit to people is that entering the world of disability kind of completely collapsed the assumptions and paradigms that I was operating under, and gave me an opportunity to kind of redefine my relationship with the entire world, like all of the people I knew and with myself, and realizing how much I'd kind of bought into this idea that there were, ways of being that were kind of better, or ways of being that were not as good. And that was totally wrong. And it was so limiting to my life. And so being given the gift of such a radical perspective shift as becoming the mother of someone who's very different, not that different, yeah. A little bit different. Yeah. It's almost like, I think the tendency is to think that I'm doing this great thing by being an advocate, but really I feel like I'm inviting people into this amazing world that they've been missing out on, of seeing themselves and everyone they love as beautiful in their differentness, and just with needs, with equity needs, as opposed to something that we need to be worried about or try to avoid. Don't avoid life.
Yeah.
Dance. Come on. Make sure it's funded.
Speaking of grays, has the current global climate, with the health crisis, everything that's going on, has that affected storylines or the way that production has worked? What's happening for the new season? It's
totally different this year. We're doing a COVID storyline. Krista Vernoff and Shonda Rhimes are a genius. And so they just worked it in. And so we're on set, but everybody's wearing PPE. So we've got masks and visors and PAPR. It's a breathing device. And then behind the scenes, we also have people with sanitizer everywhere, and we're getting COVID tested 3 times a week, and we have zones. So I'm in the red zone, and then there's a yellow zone. And so and all of our chairs now are 6 feet apart in little circles with plastic on them. So we're taking a lot of precautions. But I do feel as everyone's so isolated, I think in some ways entertainment is something that's keeping us our morale high. And so we've kind of been saying we're essential workers. We're we want to be there to provide story and companionship and accompaniment for all of these people who are heroically quarantining.